Oh, hello there. My name is Moomin Littlesocks, and you've made your way to my new mini-series, Ready Steady Build. If you're from the UK and were even somewhat conscious in the late 90s, chances are you've heard of a TV show called Ready Steady Cook. Fun fact kids, this man isn't just a meme. His name is Ainsley Harriott and he was presenter of said programme. The main concept of the show was that guests would be given some random ingredients and had to make the best meal they could with those items. So I thought to myself, well, what if we use the same principle but with everyone's favourite theme park game, Planet Coaster? So, here's the deal. Our guests will receive 100 vanilla pieces, and they'll have 1 hour to create the best building or centrepiece they can. There's a 4K limit, and shops and facilities can be used freely. Now we understand the rules, the only thing we're missing are guests. The last series featured a lot of YouTube creators, so this time around I figured I would turn to everyone's favourite streaming platform, Twitch. Although it didn't seem right that I would present a challenge without giving it a go first. That's right folks, you're gonna have to put up with me for a full episode I'm afraid. But before I do so, how do you think you would fare in completing this challenge? Well, why not give it a go? Upload your finished creation to the Steam Workshop with the hashtag ReadySteadyBuild for a chance to have your build showcased at the end of this series. For the link to the 100 pieces and full rules, click the link in the description. And yes, I will know if you cheated and went over the allotted hour. I'm always watching. Okay, I've been talking for way too long. Here's my pathetic attempt at the challenge. So here we are watching my build, and you'll probably notice that I'm talking off script. So moving forward in this series, what's going to happen is we'll watch the guests' time lapses back, and I will be chatting to them live. So figure may as well get used to not relying on words written down. So here we are. So basically, when I started this challenge, I obviously created the blueprint of 100 pieces, but at the time that I was creating the blueprint, I wasn't intending to do the challenge myself. So in that sense, I didn't really have an advantage in as much as I wasn't picking items knowing that I like to use those things or that I can build something that like I already have in mind, if that makes sense. So I when I was picking things, I picked a couple of gridded build sets. So you got the natural wood batten wall, which is actually one of my favourite pieces, but I think it's quite versatile in what you can use it for. And the stucco, how you want to say that, walls, which I don't personally use ever really. I think I prefer the smooth concrete over them, but they do have a nice texture to them. But I do know that a lot of people use stucco quite frequently, so that was my reason behind that. But because there was only 2 build types, I then had to think about, well, what can I introduce as replacement for walls? So we've got these pieces here that I'm using above the toilets. We've also got the decking. The decking is another great piece that can be used for a bunch of different things. It can be used as kind of like a facade, a replacement wall, flooring, lots of different pillars. Pillars are used quite a lot by general Planet Coaster creators. For the exact same reason. They can be used not only as pillars but a bunch of different things. I think there's some metal, wooden, all sorts of, there they are. There's a pole in there as well. Basically a lot of stuff that you could use, as well as the art shapes. Once again, you can just kind of pile them up on top of each other to create so many different things. I use the smallest ones, one of each type, because I figure, I mean, you can make the smaller ones bigger, but you can't make the big ones smaller, if that makes sense. So that's what I do with that. And then everything else is just kind of like a few doors, a few windows, and stuff like that. I should probably start talking about my build at this point, shouldn't I? So I very quickly kind of started going with an alpine kind of feel. It wasn't intentional, I didn't plan for it, it just happened. After I did the build shape, I kind of thought about what I wanted to do. It went with chief beef, so with that I thought of maybe doing some kind of like sheriff style building, and I was doing a bit of googling beforehand, found a few references and actually saw some nice modern American sheriff buildings, and that was the original influence for this. So yeah, I went with a went with it's interesting build shape with the tall tower section and then having something on a different angle. You always want to, as best you can, avoid just sticking to the one same grid because buildings rarely are. And then these windows, I wanted to go for something that was not just shoving windows on a wall, just something that looks a bit more creative. And the thing that frustrates me with the in-game windows is obviously you just stick them on the wall and they stick out, whereas if you look at most windows in real life, they're indented into the wall naturally, because the window needs to bridge the gap between the outside and the inside layer. So that's why I've started doing that a lot more. I talk about it again in the video that came out recently about the duo contest. Again, I was talking about doing custom doors and windows. You've always got to keep things interesting in Planco, do new things. So yes, did the building shape, did the windows, then I added some trims. Trims always are great to separate because the walls can look very samey and repetitive, especially if the textures repeat themselves. So adding in trims is a great way to kind of break up empty spaces. So I went with the initial green, which is I think this was the point that I was like, okay, we're going with the green alpine-y pine tree kind of aesthetic. So that's what was going on with that colour. And then I think soon after this I started doing different layers of green, but maybe that was later. No, I went with backstage next. Kept this really simple. I couldn't not do a backstage, you know me, I do backstage wherever I can. In terms of the shops and facilities, as I said, I went with the chief beef and then went with a water because I just thought, like, I don't know, like what drink goes best with the alpine feel? And I just thought, well, fresh water, probably. And then toilets around the back, just to get a few things going on, places for guests to move around. Not that I ever intend to upload this, because I'm going to be honest right now, not the most happy with this build. The challenge was a lot harder than I thought it would be. A lot harder. There's things that need fixing that I couldn't fix. I was amazed at how I was like, yeah, I can build a building in an hour. That's easy. It's really not. I recommend you try it yourselves and obviously take part in the challenge yourself and submit it. I'd love to see what everyone comes up with. Here we go. Here's the bits I was talking about. So once again, trying to break up the blank wall. Added these flipped sci-fi pieces to that side. Just the one side is like a bit of a feature, and I think that later becomes like a light box type thing. So here, something I very rarely do is basic shape art. A lot of people in the community love doing this kind of stuff. I don't like it because it's not an aesthetic that works with most of my builds. It's very like cartoony, very playful, which is great, but it doesn't often work with my realistic builds. But I thought let's do something here again to break up the empty space. So I went with some really simple kind of mountain outlines, kind of like twin peaks. Not the, you know what I mean. two mountains, and then spent way too long trying to get these to be the snow. Massively messed this up, but the snowy peaks of these mountains, and then did the same on the other one as well. I think it turned out okay if I spent more time, but as I said, it's not something that I do. I'm not great at this kind of stuff. I mean, some of the stuff that people have created, people like Cody Bits, his basic shape art, there we go, is amazing. So over here, I love these natural wall things that buildings have, where they instead of just doing ivy, they just do a full-on like natural wall, with the bushes, plants, which is great. I think it's all about encouraging wildlife, insects, butterflies, etc. A lot of people do roof gardens instead, but I thought that would fit the vibes of the build really nicely. And again, just another nice feature. once again, using the decking. There's another little feature. I don't know how many times I can say this sentence, but I just love breaking up the empty space. You're going to get very bored of me saying that, but that's what I was doing. Another trim here in the wooden pillars. All the pieces, by the way, are vanilla, I think. I'm pretty sure. They're all vanilla. Just fully running with the vibes of my previous series, the Little Rock Ridge, which was a Western park without any DLC or TMTK, featuring a bunch of really amazing creators from the community. So check that out if you haven't already. That was I think at the start of this episode there would have been some cinematics from that. So yeah, make sure you watch that if you haven't. I'm sure you have, but do it. Back to the building. As I said, the backstage I went really simple, so instead of doing custom stuff here, I just shoved normal windows on there, and then I used, this is something I did in Little Rock Ridge actually. I used wooden pillars as gutters and drain pipes, because from a distance you can't tell that it's wood. And then I did the little bit there on the bottom. I later moved the one on the right hand side because I didn't notice, but it was actually sticking into the toilets. So I think you see me fix that later on. Back to my artwork, my mural. I then tried to create some birds, really simple bird outlines. The advanced move was not my friend during this at all. That's the only problem with building on different grids on different angles. Obviously you've got your world axis and the relative axis, but as soon as you're grouping more than one item, the relative axis normally doesn't know what to do with itself, and absolute nightmare. There is an experimental advanced move setting in settings, but it never seems to fix my problems, so it's just one of those things that hopefully is fixed for the sequel to this game, if that ever materializes, but we'll see. What am I doing now? Oh yes, more backstage stuff. Cabling, a little fake electrical box, basic shape. It's my usual tactic. I would normally also put one of the TV screen, what they called, the fitting to attach it to the wall. They're really good. They've got a little knobbly bit on the end that you can use as a little handle for an electricity box. Little top tip for console players there. If you don't, because you can't get the TMTK electrical stuff, that's a good way to do that. And then I started doing some foliage, just layering up a whole bunch of bushes. Some of them sunk in, the bigger ones sunk down a little bit. Always important to rotate your bushes and trees, of course, otherwise you get very repetitive things. Here we go. So here's what I was talking about earlier. I then started doing layers of colours, just really simply going down the basic colours in the game to try and create a gradient with the panels. These are the non-lit ones, but then I think I definitely use one of the lit panels for that light box I talked about earlier. I did make a mistake here, so I copied that around there, but then I think, yeah, one of them ends up being stuck above. Yeah, you can see there on the left, it's above the thing, and I didn't notice it at the time, and I only saw it afterwards. And well, I'm an honest man, and I didn't change it. So really frustrating, but that's the whole point of a challenge. You have to try and get these things done in the time limit, and whatever you don't get done doesn't get done. And that's what it is, unfortunately. Moves on to some lighting now. I realise I wasn't very generous with the variety of lighting here. I gave the normal stuff, the essentials like the area light and the floodlight. The box light is very useful, but I didn't really supply any wall hangings of any kind, so that was the only thing I could really use, the box light with the area light beneath the ground to boost that a little bit. What was I doing? Oh yeah, so now I think I play around with do the toilet lights, but then I think I play around with one of the windows. I wanted to see if I could create. There we go. I moved the gutter. There we go. I noticed it. I'll get there eventually. Another box light. Now do I do the thing with the thing? Just a lot of faffing. See, when I'm doing my normal videos, my normal park series, you can now see the amount of faffing about that I managed to cut out. There's the light box I talked about earlier. Here we go. So with this window, I wanted to make it look like there was light coming from inside. So maybe you're seeing a closed blind with a bit of a glow behind it. That was my aim with this, and I think it worked pretty well. I love how the moonlight hits the panel, so as it would. So the moon hits the blind, but then you've also got the glow coming from behind with help from the area light. There we go. I think that looks really nice. Was quite happy with that, and that's the thing when you're doing these things and messing about. It's a really good way to find new techniques, as well as obviously watching other people. I steal stuff from people all the time, but I think we're coming to the end of the time lapse. So am I happy with it? Not really. There's some nice features that I'm happy with, but an hour is definitely not long enough to create a perfect building, in my opinion, to the level that I want to. But I hope you enjoyed the process and me waffling on, and I look forward to seeing you next week with our special guest, Spagbol Chomper.